All right. Well, let me jump in. I guess I literally just asked how are you doing, but um I like to ask when I start interviews, how are you doing like for real, for real? How are you doing?
Yeah, it's I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's I mean, things are starting to be like, you know, it's starting to get real busy. Things are ramping up real quick and it's like very, I'm not used to it. It's been a while since I've been through this cycle. But I'm excited. I'm also a little nervous on not nervous about how the album's going to be received. I feel pretty good about it, thankfully, but nervous on, how overwhelmed I'm going to be with everything because it can get a lot.
For sure, for sure. And you've been through this process a couple times, and like you said, you've been out of the major album cycle for half a decade pretty much. Now in the process of, listening to this and even just seeing some of the visuals that you're presenting, which are beautiful, by the
Thank
way, there's one word that I personally have been describing this project as, and that's freeing. And I'm curious, what is a place where you feel most sane at this point in your career?
Definitely Indonesia, definitely back home. Because it's yeah, my none of my family lives out here in the US, so I always like, it's funny, I never realize it, but like if I'm in America for a while, um I need a reset. And but when I haven't gone back yet, I don't realize it. I feel like I'm doing fine. But when I go back, I'm like, wow, I really needed this. And if, when I get to the end of the trip and I go back to LA, I'm like really sad because I'm like, wow, I'm like still a kid kind of and I still need to be around my family, you know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's because that it's like when I come back, there's just, you know, being around family is just so much warmth and so much just groundedness and realizing that like everything that can be stressful is so far away and it's nice and I feel like sometimes I can make some of the best music when I'm back home too.
No, I totally understand that. I'm South African myself, and like I haven't been home in like 7, 8 years. So,
um,
but I know exactly the feeling of when you touch down in, your home country, even though I wasn't born there, but just it's just a whole nother sensation being around family. And yeah, is there a favorite spot that you you like to hit up like as soon as you touch down?
Honestly, I'm not a big I'm a homebody. So I love like the neighborhood. I love seeing the neighborhood. I love like, going to like get my haircut in the place that I go to and just like stuff like that that just reminds me that okay, I'm home. Um but there's some food places that I hit up for sure. Um or that I like to order a lot. But nothing's better than home cooked meals though.
Oh, 1000%.
Yeah.
1000%.
Yeah.
No, but I love that. I love that. So to jump a little bit more into the project, throughout the visuals, I've noted that there's like two main characters that you have been portraying yourself through. What has been released so far as of our conversation today, kind of like a conductor type figure, and like yourself as more like a main character. I want to. I'm curious about the conductor as someone who has played violin and has been in many orchestras and stuff like that. Um, do you feel like this is an area of your career that you're able to arrange, orchestrate yourself with a bit more than the past?
100%. I think yeah, this is I because like the album is pretty much, all self-produced. I like it wasn't always going to be like that. I didn't realize it was going to be like that because I went through this process where I I was looking for, a one producer or like maybe a group of producers that I could just work on this whole album with. And I went through this process where I was just in the studio work like meeting so many new people and kind of testing out our workflows. And I had already made a few songs for the album, so I kind of already had like a shape and a feel to it. And I would play them the music, and they would kind of like try to recreate what I'm or what they think I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And I think that process actually made me realize that like, oh, I have like a way stronger vision for this project than I thought I did. And it's actually like really hard to really articulate that for to people. And it made me realize like, okay, maybe I should just do this whole thing on my own. And so what I did, that's kind of what I ended up doing, where I would just like start the ideas at home, and then like if I could if I could have the capacity to just finish it 100%, I will. But then sometimes if I really, really hit a wall, then I have a few friends, producer friends that would kind of like come in with a fresh perspective. But most of the time, it's very like compared to the past work, I'm a lot more like, okay, like let's not do that chord, or like let's use this sound, and just a lot more particular with it, and just kind of yeah, I know what I want a lot more for sure.
For sure, for sure. And I mean, it's come up a couple times throughout, even when we weren't talking about the music, but the idea of like working in your home or your own creative space. Do you feel like, because sometimes when I come to the studio, it feels like you're going to the office, but like,
Yeah.
and you're there to work. It's time to lock in, but when it comes to working at home, it can go one of two ways. It's either, you get distracted by all the things in your space, or again, it's the purest of your creative flows. Do you feel like there was one day where you were like, you could pinpoint, you know what? I don't need to go outside of these four walls to be able to create. Like, was there a song maybe on the album or the process that, yeah, was around that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard to pinpoint on one, because I feel like there's a couple of songs that was like that. There was like quite a lot of songs actually that was like that, where I just started something, and then I just knew. I think with this album is also something that I'm realizing about myself, that is that I'm not a good like single type artist. Like I'm not like if I'm not on an album cycle, it's hard for me to just make something and just kind of like I don't know, have this idea in my mind that like, okay, I'm gonna put this out as a single, because when I was working on this, I was it felt like I was so intentional on just kind of like, okay, like what is the album missing, and what haven't I talked about, and then it would just be a lot easier. It would feel like I just have like a lot more of a blueprint or a path that I could take. So there was a lot of times where I just started like an idea and it's very bare bones. And then as soon as I hear kind of the vibe, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this. And once I start writing it and I know what I'm talking about, I'll just stay there for hours. And I don't want to. I'll get hungry, but I'm just like I'm gonna eat later and just
Yeah.
like this, Um, yeah, there was a lot of stuff like that. But then there's also the days where I get in front of the computer and I start something and I'm just like everything sounds really bland, and I'm like I feel defeated by the end of the day. But then you just keep showing up and see what happens.
Of course, of course. So in that, I'm curious, and you kind of touched on a little bit, but what does pure creative freedom look like to you?
I think I feel like this album has been definitely um the most creative freedom I've had, because I got to arrange like the track listing even just purely myself, where I just like sat in front of FL Studio and just like put all the songs together, and then like kind of replayed the album front to back so many times, and thought about like, okay, what transitional moments could I put in here, or what skits could I put at what point. So with the past album, it's been a lot more like me and my manager, Sean. We would talk about it and work on it together. But this was a lot more just like he was just kind of like do your thing, and I did that. And even with the album name and just the creative, I felt like I got really hands on with it. So yeah, I think creative freedom is just like it's this I guess this is what it looks like. This album is what it looks like. And I think as far as how it feels is I think it's so important. It's really, really important to have that creative freedom, because I just, you know, this album is I think I'm just so I'm just so happy with everything that I made here, and I'm so like this is the first time where I made an album, and I feel excited to make the next one
Mm,
already right away because usually making an album is like it's so exhausting and there's so much that goes into it. And if you feel even just a little bit like you're not sure if you like what you're making, it just feels like work automatically. And you're just like, okay, I don't want to do this for another like a couple of years or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure. Well, throughout that process, and maybe in the moments where you're like, "Oof, I'm tired," or maybe you're not having the most creative ideas. Has there been a book or like a film, maybe even a quote that's kind of gotten you through the process?
Oh, that's a good question. I think I do love watching like music related stuff, like for example the Pharrell film, the Lego
Everyone? Yep.
piece. I love watching Tyler's Cherry Bomb documentary or like his Wolf documentary.
Mm.
That always sparks something. And as far as a quote, I think wow, I have so many quotes. I feel like in my head that I think about a lot when I'm writing, but it's hard to pinpoint a specific one. I think a big thing that really changed for me though is like when I was 19 or something. I think because my dad is like a pretty like spiritual, like religious person, and he always tells me to pray, and he always tells me to pray for um so that God would give me ideas for music. And that's I never thought about it that way before, where it's like, oh, like these ideas come from God, do you think? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. And then later on I would watch all these interviews by like Pharrell, and he's talking about the exact same thing, and it's like, okay, I think that puts less pressure on myself.
Mm.
And yeah, I think I go into this habit where I do pray now, as much as I can before I create something because, you know, just to clear that channel of just like ideas coming in and whatnot.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, that's so interesting. I'm kind of in a similar space. I literally said it before I came on this call
Yeah,
and like
amazing.
yeah, no, it's definitely is like a reset. And yeah, anyway, I don't want to turn this to a whole sermon. Um, well, it kind of gets into a main thing that's a theme of when I interview people. My show is called Rouge Room, and it centers around creative spaces, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit. So just to confirm, your creative space or your personal creative space that you feel the most creative freedom is in your pretty much your room, you'd say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, as we start to close out, about three items that are from that creative space that say I stepped into your space that that would catch my eye off the rip and be like, yo, that looks like that has a dope story attached to it.
Um, let's
Um,
see.
so
Uh,
you start thinking, I'm curious if you have one that is a bit funny, one that's a bit life-changing, and one that's a bit more sentimental.
okay, well, right now I have this electric bug zapper.
Okay.
Um, it's I don't know, it just looks kind of funny. I just there's a fly right now in my apartment. There's usually not any bugs or anything flying around, but there's been this one really big fly that's been flying around. I've been trying to get him for a couple days, but something sentimental.
Mm.
Probably probably this thing. My ex gave me this.
Mm.
Yeah, this is she bought this when she went to where's the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History.
Cool.
It's somewhere in America. It was her way of she was going to a lot of different places in America, and she tried to give me a gift from every city. She didn't even tell me until she got back, and I was very touched by it. We're still friends, so we're good.
Okay.
Um,
Just to confirm.
yeah. Life changing, life changing. I mean, as far as life changing, I mean, probably this thing. This is my first this is the first like analog keyboard that I got.
Yeah.
I got this like 2 years ago, and since then I've collected, like this, and then I have like these two, and then there's like other ones that you can't see. But that really just changed my whole approach on production. I think that's like when I really started to figure out the sound of the album.
Sure, for sure. Do you
Yeah.
feel like you were working more off like was it still keys or more of like MPCs and or
Uh,
other producers
I'm
style?
not an MPC guy just because I feel like it doesn't fit my room. That has too much stuff. I went to my friend's studio and I tried an MPC and it was really fun.
Mhm.
But I do enjoy programming drums, but mostly keyboards and guitars. You could probably see there's some guitars in the back. But yeah, just because keyboards and synths is just like a really it's super versatile. You can do a lot with it. And yeah, yeah, that really that I think with my last album, The Sailor, it was I was working with these producers that were really talented and they really like elevated the production,
Mhm.
the album before that, and I just wanted to match that quality wise. So I that's why I got into all these gear stuff.
No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
It's sometimes fun to like nerd out on like things like that. No, for sure. For sure. Well, Brian, it's been an absolute pleasure to chop it up, get to know you a little bit more. Here's and you're the probably the only one who can get this because you've met him, but I stole this from Sean Evans because I love I love his stuff. But here's where I say I roll out the red carpet. Here's where I'll let you kind of say what's going on, what's coming up, all that good stuff.
100%. So my name is Rich Bryan, and I have an album called "Where's My Head" coming out on May 23rd. Depending on when this interview comes out, I should have a song called "Butterfly" that's out, and I love that song. And what else do I have coming? I'll be touring. I'll be touring. It's not announced yet, but it'll happen. And I'm so excited to do that.
I'm in Australia.
Absolutely.
There we go. My roommate was like, "Yo, Husky was coming to Australia." Twin
I
Dynasty that tour.
no, I miss Australia so much.
Ah,
Yeah.
again, thank you so much for
Thank
jumping on, and yeah, hope to see you soon.
All right. Thank you so much.